This is a hammer-headed bat, Hypsignathus monstrosus, which, not for nothing, is a fantastic and highly accurate Latin name. The largest species of bat in Africa. It's a nocturnal fruit bat that lives mostly in the forests of West and Central Africa. It has a wingspan of about a meter, and the males can reach weights of almost a pound, which is gigantic for a bat. Local tribes have some fascinating theories centering around its haunting, buzzing mating call. John and Anita Diaz didn't keep their daughter Lucy's situation exactly a secret. They discussed it early on, and they agreed that they didn't want the girl to think that they thought it was something shameful that needed to be hidden. On the other hand, they were well aware of how judgmental the world could be. The last thing Lucy needed as she grew up was a short-sighted world weighing in on how the little girl had squandered a priceless opportunity. Life was difficult enough. As a result, they were never melodramatic or swore her to secrecy or anything. Anita just had a series of conversations with the girl about privacy and how there were some things that would just be a good idea to keep to herself, like bathroom talk or picking her nose, or Lou. It was never clear how Lucy had been granted a wish. Mystical wish fulfillment wasn't unheard of after all. In a world filled with magic, filled would be an overstatement. It's not like your average person would walk out their door to go to work and find a unicorn grazing on the front lawn. Although that actually did happen to some guy in Duluth last year. The point is, magical experiences like being granted a wish weren't unheard of, just really rare, like being struck by lightning. On the other hand, around the world, 250,000 people are struck by lightning each year, although it's unclear how many of them are victims of magical conspiracies. The fact remained, though, that at the age of 6, Lucy Diaz had been granted a wish. Whether it had been a djinn, or a leprechaun, or a fairy queen, or whether she had just blown on the right dandelion, Lucy was given a wish. She almost certainly meant to wish for a Pegasus, a brilliant white horse with angel wings, but being 6 years old, she wished for a horse that can fly. What she got was Lou. A giant hammer-headed bat was clearly not what the girl had meant, but she was a kind and loving girl, and the more she looked at her new friend's face, the more she had to admit that he did look kind of like a horse. It was also clear that he needed somebody to love him, and Lucy was happy to do that. She named the giant fruit bat Lou, and there's no denying that he looked like a Lou. So while Lucy's parents tried to keep a low profile, there was no denying that the girl's new best friend was a giant African fruit bat. Lou was extremely fastidious, and most of the time you'd hardly even know he was there. There was no bat smell in Lucy's bedroom where he spent most of the time. If anything, it smelled vaguely of tropical fruit. And that was another thing. Where was all this fruit coming from? Aside from the odd mango or banana, the Diazes weren't supplying any of the dozens, and then as Lou continued to grow, hundreds of pounds of fruit he ate each day. From time to time, Lucy would beg her parents to buy him a couple of coconuts as a special treat. She loved the way he would crush them in his jaws, squirting coconut water all over the place. This is something that wild hammer-headed bats could not do. Anita had checked. But, as Lucy would fiercely declare on the rare occasion that someone said anything less than glowing about him, Lou was special. True, the giant hammer-headed bat wasn't very bright, and of course he had a face that looked like the scene of an industrial accident. But he adored Lucy, who returned the sentiment tenfold. And Lou was strong. As Lucy grew older and got bigger, so did Lou. By the time Lucy was in the 2nd grade, he was the size of a washing machine and could actually lift a washing machine and fly around with it. As the family discovered one afternoon when an unbalanced load made the washer rock back and forth with an ominous thumping sound. This spooked Lou, who took it on himself to carry it to the nearest police station. And though her parents would have had conniptions if they'd known about it, Lucy sometimes had her friend take her on nighttime flights to zoos and sculpture gardens around the state. As time went by, Lou only grew stronger, which made Lucy even prouder, if that was possible. As Peter, Paul, and Mary might have sung, had they known the pair, dragons live forever, but not so little girls and their giant, horrifying bat creatures. Lucy and Lou both grew older, And as John and Anita had feared, the pair found themselves more and more frequently at odds with a world that feared what it did not understand. 5th grade can be rough. The boys, Lucy knew, being knuckleheads, just got smellier and told increasingly disgusting and hilarious to them fart jokes. For the girls, though, life quickly became a Darwinian minefield. As Lucy discovered one morning at recess when she was surrounded in the corner of the playground by 4 mean girls, intent on giving her a crash course in her many shortcomings. She was ugly, they told her, because that was one of the worst things they could think of. She was stupid, they informed her, and liked stupid things. She was poor, they said, too poor to afford good clothes, the right clothes, and that made her even more pathetic and stupid. This last point was a stab in the dark for the mean girls. It just sounded like it was something shameful, so they threw it on the pile of their abuse. And, to be fair, Lucy was a bit odd. She had very little interest in things like clothes or Korean boy bands. She was more interested in learning obscure facts and sharing them with anyone willing to listen, especially if they were bat-related. And while this actually made Lucy far more interesting than her peers, it was just weird to them, and thus deserving of punishment. What none of the mean girls had counted on when they surrounded her this particular morning, however, was Lucy placing 2 fingers in her mouth and blowing an ear-splitting "Hey, taxi" whistle. It was a new skill that she was enormously proud of.
I never could do that.
It's easy.
Even higher on their list of things not counted on was a giant horse-faced bat swooping out of nowhere and screaming in each of their faces. This was something that subsequently took years for the girls to work through in therapy. A few years later, Lucy's first serious, he told her that they'd been serious, boyfriend decided to break up with her in a convenience store parking lot. Tony had heard that if you broke up with a girl in public, she would be too humiliated to make a scene and embarrass you. Buoyed up by that reassurance, he didn't bother to be gentle or kind in his dismissal of Lucy. A little embarrassment turned out to be the least of Tony's problems, he discovered a moment later, when a series of concrete blocks dropped from the sky, obliterating the front end of his car. Tony turned to Lucy and was stopped dead by the look she was giving him, one that would have curdled ice cream. He started to stammer out something, but she whipped out an index finger and held it in front of his face in the universal, "I dare you to say anything" gesture, effectively silencing him, before turning on her heel and striding away with her head held high. Had John and Anita been there, they would have high-fived each other. Today we're going to make a variation on a cocktail called the Fruit Bat. Now, it's not surprising that there would be a rum drink named after a bat because the bat is the symbol of the Bacardi Company. But we're going to make a few little twists to this. We're going to start with a 1/4 cup, that's 4 tablespoons, of dried blueberries. And to that, we're going to add 1/2 ounce of rum. I happen to have some chili lime rum on hand, so that's what I've used. And now we're going to do some muddling. We're going to smash those berries up like they owe us money. We're really going to town on them. Now, we've added the rum in with the berries so that the rum can start stripping away some of the color, some of the flavor from the berries. And I looked in there and they're looking beaten but not defeated, if you know what I mean. Okay, so let's mush them up a little bit more and set that aside. Okay, to that, we're going to add another ounce of the rum for a total of 1.5 ounces. Boom. And we're going to use a bar spoon to stir everything up. You've just flattened a lot of the berries to a layer on the bottom of the cup. Now we're going to use the long-handled bar spoon to mix everything up. The berries are soaking in alcohol now, giving up some of their flavonoids, some of their color. And because this is a purple fruit bat, we've just added the blue, so we're going to add 3/4 of an ounce of Aperol, which is the red element. Aperol, it's a little bit bitter, but it helps bring out the flavor of other ingredients. And to that, we're going to add another 3/4 of an ounce of peach-flavored whiskey. There are several out on the market right now. Crown Royal makes a very nice one. This one is one I happen to have in a little nip bottle. And so, again, we're just going to stir and stir and stir. And I finally invested in a stainless steel version of my citrus juicer. The aluminum was leaving like black marks everywhere. It was as it was breaking down. The aluminum oxide was a little bit miscolored and it made things look bad. So I switched it over to the stainless steel. Works just as well. We're pouring out an ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice. And that's most of our ingredients. Let's add 4 or 5 ice cubes and seat the shaker. Shake, 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 shake. A little more shaking until you hear the ice start to break up into little shards. And the last piece of equipment we're going to use is a strainer. A lot of people like to strain their drinks in different ways. I'm going to double strain it. I'm going to just use the Boston shaker to strain out most of the blueberry carcasses. And I'm also using a $2 drain strainer. You'd buy it, you'd put it in the drain of your sink to help filter out anything that might be going down the drain. It's about the same size as a cocktail glass. Okay, so we've got the purple fruit bat. It is certainly purple. And wow, that is not subtle at all, but it is fruity. It is in your face. It's not overly sweet. The lemon juice is delicious. The hints of chili, the hints of lime, makes me think I want a fruit bat of my own.